I'm very happy to announce today we've raised $6 million with 14 friends and investors. The reason we announced it today, even though it was closed, actually since September, most of it, is that I didn't have all the paperwork done, and I just felt like having everything signed would be better. I felt like telling you the story on how it happened. Through their fund, Atomico, Niklas Zennström, Janus Fries, and Matthias Ljungman have actually invested $5.5 million on the $6 million. Let me tell you how it all started. Niklas and I have known each other for years. And it all started with a dinner where I explained to Niklas that to me the video conversation would be something huge, like it has always been in text on blogs and social software. What I learned from Niklas and Janus is scaling. How a better example than Skype is to reach a mass audience without doing any marketing, just virally. That's why we are so focused on international and getting more than 20 countries in Seesmic already. It's during the same dinner, talking with Niklas, that I decided to move to the US. The idea was really to create a global company, a global community. I spent 2 months during the summer moving my family, my 3 boys, of course my wife Geraldine. We sold our house in Paris, got one here, found our visa, changed everything. I felt like starting from scratch. I felt like graduating from business school again. Fortunately, it was not totally the case. Like my passé, as we would say in French, has been following me. And as I talked twice, for example, at Google Zeitgeist in Europe, they invited me at Google Zeitgeist here as well. That's how I met Steve Case. And Steve had a look at Seesmic, the very initial Seesmic, and decided to invest. Talking about conferences, Michael Harrington and Jason Calacanis gave me my first speech opportunity in the US at TechCrunch 40, where I became a judge, an expert in judging startups. I was sitting next to Ron Conway. Ron invited me for coffee at his house. I explained the Seesmic in an hour, and after an hour, he decided to invest. Networking. Ron Conway then introduced me to tons of people. I can't even count them. And one of them was Michael Parek. Michael has taken so many companies public. I didn't really need to raise more money. Niklas and Janus of Atomico had put $5.5 million. I could just have stopped there. But I thought I needed help from US friends. And that's, the spirit of it. It's not about the $25 to $200 something thousand that they've put in Seesmic that matters. It's more about their advice. If you ask me to quote only one thing about moving here, one great thing, it would be trust. By default, people give you your trust. One example of this is Mark Pincus. He was one of the first ones I called to, and Seesmic is still in his offices and bumping into the corridors. Michael Harrington meets hundreds of startups every week. And he was the first one to click on Seesmic. He saw it first, posted one of the first videos, and wrote the first ever post about Seesmic, which was positive, and for me validated the fact that conversation in video was a huge opportunity. What was the most important for me at the beginning, of course, was to meet the bloggers, my friends. I met Harrington, but I also met, of course, Robert Scoble and Dave Weiner. They both supported me and pushed me in building Seesmic entirely in the open by listening to the community. That's what we discussed the most. Even before moving to the US, I had so much help from Jeff Clavier and Freddie Mini of NetVibes. Networking again. Jeff Clavier introduced me to Ted Wong, who's our lawyer, and closed the deal, and I recommend Ted to any entrepreneur if you can manage to get his time. Ted Wong then introduced me to Ariel Poller, another serial entrepreneur who invested as well. Some of our investors have been in the video online field for years, like Steve Garfield and Jeff Pulver. They have launched their TV online, and we're learning a lot from them. They're sending us daily emails and advice. Martin Varsavsky told me many times as a joke that he would be offended if he could not invest in Seesmic, so I'm so happy Martin is here as one of the best serial entrepreneurs I know in Europe. Business plan and revenue. What I've learned from our investors too, namely mostly from Reid Hoffman, is that we shouldn't focus on revenues at the beginning. For a project like Seesmic, I'm not saying from all the startups, but for Seesmic, the most important is to grow a great community at the beginning. Think about how LinkedIn launched. LinkedIn has not charged anything until they reached, I think, like 3 to 5 million users. And this year, they're going to do more than $80 million in revenues. I will always remember Reid a few years ago presenting me his slide deck about LinkedIn, where he was explaining that revenue wouldn't be a focus at the beginning, only the community. Skype has not charged anything for a while, and they spread virally first, and then they started to generate revenues. For the first year in 2008, that's why we raised also so much money. We won't focus on advertising, we will just build the Seesmic community. We, the Media, is a book that Dan Gilmore has written a few years ago, and has been so inspiring for me in just thinking about the idea of Seesmic. I'm so happy he's an investor now. I have quoted many names today, actually many more names than our investors. As you can see, these are all friends. That's the most important for me. It's about advising us, helping us on a daily basis. It's also a very important responsibility for me because they could lose their money. And friends, if you watch this, I don't want to lose your friendship whatever happens, but Seesmic will succeed. Funding is important, it's the fuel to what we're doing, but of course the most important are the community and the product itself, which we'll build thanks to the community. And so I felt like sharing this with you today. If you had any questions on our funding or on our investors, I can even ask them to answer your questions. Please feel free to ask more. I know you asked a few yesterday, and we'll discuss them tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
Community and the product.
The product.
The product.
The community.
Okay.